I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldabar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek Podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek Podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me are co-hosts Graham.
Hey.
And Maureen.
Hello.
And also joining us today is a very special guest. We have actor Ryan Gage, who is best known for playing Alfred Lickspittle in the Hobbit movies The Desolation of Smaug and The Battle of the Five Armies, and King Louis in The Musketeers. So how are you today, Ryan?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast. So getting right into the questions, Ryan, my first question is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
Well, I decided to become an actor when I was quite young, I suppose, really. I did extracurricular activities, I tried lots of things. I tried soccer and dance, and what did I try? I tried all sorts of things, really. But acting was the only thing that I really was passionate about, and that I could find enough classes to stimulate me and go to, and that there were enough sort of plays and stuff, the school did, and different drama clubs locally did, that I was managing to get enough classes and stuff. So I did lots of improv classes and all that kind of thing until I was 19, and then I went to a drama school, and that was when I started to learn actually how to sort of be interested in it from a craft perspective and actually learn, some techniques and really learn how to do it really before I was just sort of being silly and showing off.
It's very nice. My second question is, how did you get the role of Alfred in The Hobbit?
I got the role of Alfred because I was doing a tiny little play in a room of a pub in Islington, a bar in Islington, and it was a great little play that I was doing for practically no money, but it was written by Tom Stoppard, who's a great English playwright. And I just loved the story and the words and the characters. But I didn't realise that there was actually a Hobbit casting director in the audience, one of the casting assistants for Amy Hubbard, who's the lead casting director on The Hobbit. And so long story short, I then got an audition and did a number of auditions, and eventually landed a part. But the part that I landed was actually a different part. I landed a part of The Hobbit called Drogo. But again, things changed, and I eventually ended up with the part that I first auditioned for, which was Alfred.
That's very interesting, thank you. My third question is, what was it like working with the cast and crew of The Hobbit?
Well, it was a delight, really. There's so many different personalities. I think the through line with the cast certainly is humour. Everybody involved has a great sense of humour. They've got a great sense of joy, and they love their job, and they're very good at their job. And there was a great deal of laughter on set. Everybody was having a great time a lot of the time, despite the fact that some of the characters were in heavy prosthetics, which can be quite claustrophobic and burdensome for them. Generally speaking, everybody was very upbeat every day. Every day was a joy to go in to see everyone, and Yeah, they're a great bunch of people. It's always like, it was lovely meeting up with them for the premiere because it's genuinely nice to see them.
That's great, definitely. My fourth question, what was filming in New Zealand like? Had you been there prior to getting cast in The Hobbit?
I had been to New Zealand before. I went to New Zealand with my ex-girlfriend from many years back. And we went with her family, and we'd been to somewhere in the North Island. It was extraordinary where we went. It was this remote island. I don't know if your listeners have been to New Zealand, but it really is one of the most staggeringly beautiful countries in the world. And we had a bizarre experience there. Her poor grandmother, she had family over there. It only wasn't her grandmother, but it was a family, a sort of family elder, had broken her arm when we were on this trip, and we were in such a remote place that she had to be transported by helicopter whilst on morphine. So it was quite an extraordinary experience with her flying over New Zealand. It was like something that maybe Keith Moon would do. But apart from that, I hadn't seen the rest of New Zealand, which the South Island is just staggering. I mean, a lot of people say that the scenery is Jurassic. It just looks like something from a different time, a sort of prehistoric era. It's just beautiful. So I'm a big fan of New Zealand, and I would encourage anyone to go there if they haven't been.
That's great. My final question for you, Ryan, is do you have any upcoming acting roles or other projects you would like to talk about? I know you're promoting the role of King Louis in The Musketeers currently, and a few upcoming movies. Do you want to talk about those?
Absolutely. We've just finished a second series of The Musketeers. I don't know if you guys, second season, sorry. I don't know if you guys caught the first one on BBC America, but it was a fantastic first series. We've just finished shooting the second one. We're waiting to hear about the third. My fingers are crossed, quietly confident that my fingers are crossed as to whether we get a third. But it's a great second series, but we've sort of taken a slightly darker, more dangerous twist on this one. And my character, King Louis, certainly gets put through the mill. I mean, some pretty awful things happen to him in this season. I would definitely encourage people to tune into the second series, whether or not this season, whether or not they saw the first season. But if they didn't, of course, it's available on Blu-ray and stuff like that. You can grab it and watch it. I've also got a couple of very short scenes in some rather good films. A film called Scottish Muscle, which is a British film, but it's very, very funny, very surreal. And I took some time off. I do sort of 7 months' work on Louis. Out in Prague, filming The Musketeers, but I snuck away because whenever there's a bit of time off, even if I get a week or something, it's nice to go and be somewhere else for a bit. So I went and played this hilarious jeweler in this comedy, this surreal comedy. And also I've got another movie with Idris Elba and Gemma Arterton, in which again I snuck off and did a couple of days on this really nice scene playing a drug dealer who has to have a very serious conversation with. So along with The Musketeers, which I think is released the 17th of January in America. I could be wrong, but I think that's when it's released. And in the UK, it's released in the 2nd of January.
Very nice. Well, definitely keep an eye out for all of those. So thank you very much, Ryan, for answering my questions. I'll let my co-host Graham ask his now.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, hi.
Hi, my first question is, have you ever read any of the Tolkien books before or after taking the role?
Absolutely. My mum used to read me The Hobbit. It was one of my favourite books when I was a kid. I can't remember the exact age she first read it to me, but she certainly read it to me a number of times. And I always like to say, and I told this to Andy Serkis, that my mum gave Andy a run for his money because she was a brilliant Gollum. She did a fantastic characterisation of Gollum. He maybe just sneaks the edge, but certainly if the part had been up for grabs, my mum would have been in for the running for that one.
And what's been your favourite aspect of working on The Hobbit?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, chiefly I think it was the opportunity to work with Peter Jackson, who is such a brilliant mind. You know, he's just such a sort of visionary and such an artist to watch. He's watching multiple screens, he's choosing bits of material and fabric and sort of okaying models and saying, no, we need to make this bigger, we need to do something, change the buckle on this. At the same time, sort of saying action. and sort of concentrating on two different sets at the same time and having so many things in his head. It's just extraordinary to watch someone be such a maestro, so in command of this sort of full orchestra that he has in front of him, this sort of behemoth. It's just enormous, the size of the production. So getting to work with him was just a thrill, just to see someone in action. I'm so proud of him. Just as, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he got a star, a Hollywood star. So everyone's thrilled for him. Other than that, the opportunity to be in a production of that size, to play such a great character, to work with a fantastic actor, there were so many positives. To work in New Zealand, it's a gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving. The Hobbit has just been a thrill from start to finish. I was, very proud and privileged to have been, sort of allowed into such a, successful movie for a franchise, if that's too sort of cold a word. There was at no point was I ever disappointed and didn't never meet my expectations. I always found it every day to be thrilling and fun.
Cool, awesome. It said that by the end of production that the cast of a project is almost like a little family. Would you be inclined to agree with that? And if so, when was the most that you've ever felt this?
Well, actually, I sort of touched on it already, really. But yes, I mean, absolutely a family. So I think that starts with the fact that because Peter works with his wife, Brian Walsh, and their sort of best friend, Philippa, that is immediately a sort of the first sort of nuclear family, and they all have young children, relatively young children, and some of whom are in the movie, and then the family just extends out from there. Martin has a young family. Jimmy has a young family. So many, Orlando has a young family. Vandrine has a young family. So there was often lots of kids around. There were lots of going to each other's houses. I remember going to a painting party. I think at Evangeline's place when she was there, where you sort of arrived and just saw the whole Hobbit cast with their kids, friends, all drawing pictures outside and painting pictures. So there were lots of sort of very sweet time. And obviously Wellington is a small city, and so if we were filming in another place, maybe I don't know, in Los Angeles or London or somewhere, it wouldn't be as easy to sort of be all together. But because we were the cast, we were filming in Wellington, and so it was easy to be sort of in and out of each other's houses quite simply every day. So we saw a great deal of each other. It's sort of like the Hobbit neighbours. I don't know if you get that over there, but like a soap where everyone just seems to walk through each other, knock on the front door and walk in. But that was the atmosphere, and then and then when you've got time off, and then when you haven't got time off, you see each other every day. You eat together, you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you sort of do feel like you're all one big happy family, and that includes the crew as well. Many of whom I'm in contact with, and I know other members of the cast are still in contact with a great deal of the crew. You work together for what is over 3 years, over 6 years for the production team, 6 months in my case. But you can't help but get very close to people, and we did.
Of course. And do you have any specific methods that you use to get into character? And if so, could you give us an example of a few of them?
Well, I approach every character differently. I don't have one way of working for one way of working for all my characters. I would say that for Alfred, I took the words off the page and allowed them to sort of affect me, and sort of allowed the way he spoke to affect the way I was. And then once I got into costume, I realised that he would be he was heavy clothing, especially in the second movie. As the third movie, he loses some clothing, so he brightens up a little bit, and circumstances dictate that he has to become a little bit. He loosens up a bit, but certainly in the second movie, he's wearing very heavy clothing. It's very cold in Lake Town. He hadn't had to sort of walk any faster than a sort of turtle pace or tortoise pace for a long time, and so it sort of affected his body. So I had this idea that the cold and the wet and the damp had sort of seeped into his spine, and Fran really liked me sort of twisted and sort of warping my spine into a sort of hunch. sort of hunched over, and that really, whenever I sort of affected that hunch, whenever I sort of twisted myself into it, it changed the way I sort of spoke, those sort of things. So I think there was a much more physical approach to that, but also just making sure that I was having a good time, laughing and joking, because even though he's a very dark, twisted sort of psyche, there's a spirit of fun running through the character. So I was making sure that I was enjoying myself, as well. So that was sort of infused. I never sort of attempted to be funny, really. I didn't really think about it. I sort of thought of it as playing a serious role, but I at the same time allowed myself to have fun. Yeah, I jumped right in. I mean, I spent a lot of the time in the physicality of the character. I walked around with a sort of twisted back, chiefly because it was easy to. It was easier than sort of moving up and down from sort of a straight back to a crooked back. It actually hurt a lot more. It was very painful to be in that position for long periods of time, and so it actually was more comfortable to sort of maintain the position, which I think sort of helped. But yeah, I jumped right in and just started playing, really.
Cool. Now, for my last question, I just wanted to ask you, are there any particular actors or films that inspired you as an actor? Like, has any film ever kind of grasped you in such a way that you kind of just say, wow, I really want to do that someday?
Yeah, I think probably Reservoir Dogs was the film that which sort of blew my mind. I think I probably saw it when I was about 11, and I'd never seen anything so cool and so sort of riveting, really. I'd never sort of been so gripped and so terrified and horrified and made to laugh so hard. And I just I found the music, the acting, all the elements of Reservoir Dogs for me sort of it completely blew me away, and I was spellbound. I mean, there were so many other movies, Goodfellas and. Actually, The Wizard of Oz is also a movie that I love to watch, and for the gangster films, but chiefly, Apocalypse Now, The Godfather. They're all movies that I probably saw around the same age, and I was completely captivated and adrenalinized by them. That's not a minute though.
Awesome. Thanks very much for answering my question. I think that's all I've got. So I'm going to pass you on to Maureen now. She has a few for you.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, my first question is, what was it like filming with all this special effects, with like body doubles and green screens and things like that? It must have been a completely new experience.
It certainly was a new experience. I'd never worked on anything like it before. I mean, it was often, it was just, it's amazing how a surreal world like that can normalized, you sort of saw it when people who hadn't been on set before came on set, and you could see them sort of, not sort of becoming sort of like children. They sort of couldn't believe that they were sort of sat around a breakfast table and they'd be sat next to an orc having sort of a bowl of cereal or something, and next to him would be, sort of somebody 7 foot tall or something, and then next to him would be somebody sort of 3 foot tall or whatever it was, and you sort of, the more that you sort of stay on set, you don't realise, you don't think about, you see people as individuals and you see people as the people that you've got to know, but obviously it can be quite a shock when you see such extreme physicalities. The elves, for example, one day we had how many it was, hundreds of these beautiful models, elven sort of cheekbone boys who were on set, and the poor guys had to stand in this armor on a baking hot day, and they were just dropping like flies. So I remember people seeing these sort of models in full elven armor sort of being stretchered off occasionally to medical sort of centres with sort of, and having water pumped into them. And people visiting the set just looking at this bizarre sight of these guys being stretched off. There were lots of surreal things constantly because of the fantastical nature of it. And it's always sort of bizarre being sat next to Gandalf or seeing, Legolas, eating a sandwich or something, in a sort of normal situation. It can be quite disconcerting sometimes, in a joyful way.
That's awesome. I've always had this one question about green screens. Is that As actors, do you get any kind of hint of what you're meant to be looking at? Or do you go see the film and then have this moment of, oh, I was meant to be looking at that, okay. How does that work?
I mean, I didn't do a great deal of green screen. I did do some, and I don't think it's for the movie. It might be an extended cut. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult because you have to sort of match up. I remember there was one scene where I had to grab Bilbo, and he was obviously, Martin Freeman was filming it in a completely different set in a green screen. So I was on a real set, sort of grabbing the air. And there was nothing wrong, particularly with the way that I grabbed him, except that I wasn't anywhere near where his head was going to be because I didn't know where it was. It has its challenges. It's also very difficult to react to somebody who isn't there. You have to sort of train your emotions to sort of give the performance for them, and to which you then react, which is fine once you get your head around it, but it's not necessarily something that you're used to doing very often.
Yeah, I had heard stories of Ian McKellen just getting very frustrated with it and almost giving up and declaring that's not what he became an actor for, and getting really frustrated with the whole trying to figure out who's where, who's talking to him.
Yeah, I think just because of his height and because of the height of Gandalf versus the height of the dwarves, I think he had a lot more to do this time than he used to. Yeah, I mean, it really does have its challenges because you're not working with a sort of living, breathing person. You're looking at a round ball on a stick. But fortunately, I didn't have to do too much of it on this job.
It sounds so frustrating as a job. I don't think I'd be able to do it, so I mean, gotta hand it to you.
The green screen thing is you just got to use your imagination, but you just got to decide where they are and sort of decide what they're going to do, and then imagine that. I mean, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the essence of it in the end. My next question is, what was the first day on set like?
Well, my first day on set wasn't a filming day. I arrived 2 weeks before I had to start filming the very first time, and often I would end up later on. When I went home and came back, often I'd end up on set the next day, which was absolutely awful because I was but the first time I got there, I did actually have 2 weeks to sort of acclimatise. It was great fun. It was, it was incredible to meet everyone. Everyone was so nice. Everyone was so excited. It was early on, so it was just, people weren't tired. Even though every day was always joyful, but there was a lot of energy in the beginning of the set days, and there was a real buzz. So it was just great to meet everyone. Yeah, I mean, I in a way I subconsciously didn't allow myself to be too awestruck by it, although it was impossible not to be, because I knew I had a job to do and I was there for a reason. I had been chosen to do it, so I didn't allow myself to become leaf in the wind. But I sort of, there were certainly moments where I sort of couldn't help but sort of, be impressed and sort of pinch myself that I was there. But at the same time, I sort of knew I was there to do a job, and that was at the forefront of my mind. And I was looking forward to getting on set and doing the work, really. So
it was a case of picking your jaw up off the ground and going to work?
Absolutely. I mean, that doesn't mean it wasn't an absolutely thrilling job. It really was. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't just allow myself to think I was on holiday. I knew, there was work to do on the character, there was work to do, and it was important that I focus on that chiefly. And then once we got started, it was just a ball. We just had so much fun doing it. It was a dream gig, really.
Awesome. So my last question for you is, if you could be any creature from Middle Earth, what would it be and why?
Wow. Creature. I mean, I quite like hobbits. I think because I was nearly one, I sort of started to prepare for that character. Drogo liked eating. I was told he was. I think that was in the Lord of the Rings prologue. He liked to eat, so I was allowing myself to drink lots of beer and cider and eat pies all the time. It was going to be my preparation. I was just planning on becoming quite chubby. So that was already quite fun. So I like hobbits sort of gluttony is silly. But also, you can't help but sort of think that the elves are very cool. they're so pretty and in the movie. So I'm a bit envious of that creature. But I like being Alfred. I have to be honest. I had a great time being him. And orcs are pretty cool as well. I quite like being an orc, but you have to be sort of 6 foot something and a bodybuilder to sort of be allowed in an orc's costume.
I'd have to agree with you on the Hobbit's 7 meals a day thing as well. It sounds like quite a nice lifestyle.
It does, yeah. I think they know to enjoy themselves, Hobbits.
That's it for all my questions. Thank you very much for answering them.
Very welcome. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. So that's all of our questions for you, Ryan. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. It was really nice talking to you.
Hopefully we can talk to you again, because it's been a pleasure. So I'll talk to you soon then. Bye.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
So that was our interview with actor Ryan Gage, who plays Alfred in 2 of the Hobbit movies. So are you both ready to wrap up?
Yeah, go for it.
So make sure to check out our YouTube channels. The podcast is www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Mine is www.youtube.com/